violence and what it means to be a Christian and to turn the other cheek and all of that kind of nonviolence, that was my way of life. On the other hand, as a child and as a member of the Police Boys Club, I was a boxer. Just show the irony. I was boxed.
Just like James Lawson.
I got oh yeah, he was too?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's that right.
And George Wallace.
Right. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know about Jim though.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm just pointing out the irony there, and also the fact that I learned a little exercise as well. All of that. I used it one time. One time. I had to be honest. I used it one time.
Tell us.
It was one of my bad days. See, on my bad days, I don't care what it is, boy. Boy, I'm so glad the cops didn't mess with me on my bad days. I probably would have died. They would have killed me. See?
Today is not a bad day, right?
Today is all right. Yeah. But this guy had a chain. This white guy had a chain. That chain was a real thick chain. And it was one of my bad days. And he came at me with this chain. I was on the, see, this picket line was, where was I? I forget the time now. But anyway, I remember what I did. We was marching back and forward, see, with enough distance between so that nobody would, anybody want to come through can come through. And this guy want to hit me with that chain. I wasn't in no mood that day for him to mess with me with that chain. So when he came to me, see, we all nonviolent. He knows he doesn't have to worry about being hit. See, so he just bring the chain, taunting me with the chain. So, boy, this is the first time I've been there, and I don't been there on TV. Yeah, I did. I did it one like this. I was like this. Yo! I put one in his rib out right there. And I said, ah! You got that chain, hit me! Police came and got him off the ground. Not perfect, but I did do that one time. But I was sorry for it, and I never did it again. But all of that was confidence building, not just hitting him or anything. It was development in me of confidence. That particular day was a bad day, like I'm telling you this, and that's true. It was a bad day. If cops had caught me some days with my attitude not under my control, I would probably be dead. Mm-hmm. But thank the Lord that most of the days they came, get out the car, big in nigga, with their hand on their pistol every time, knowing that we're nonviolent. Here we go again. Now some days I didn't feel like going to jail. I wasn't in the mood to go to jail on certain days, but I went on anyway.
Were there any spiritual practices that you followed in order to build this confidence, to be a nonviolent resistor?
I pray without ceasing. I mean, there's always prayer. There's always, I have fun in jail. I have fun, and I had fun right there in front of the sheriff, But I was always not always the acceptance of death. Let me tell you about this. See, when I first went south, as if Virginia's not south. But when I went down to Georgia and Alabama, Mississippi, and different places like that, see, it's mentality. See, in Virginia, I didn't feel like I was gonna die, because I guess because I've been associated with police, white police, and been all over the state riding with them, and they praising me and I'm a good boxer.
This was a police boys club, huh?
The police boys club thing, gave me a closeness, well, at least, a closeness. I remember that Chief Trailer. I'm trying to remember his name all these years. Chief Trailer. That was the guy. But they all praised me and so seemingly accepted me as any other child, And that gave me some feelings of inner confidence, that I was somebody. That helped me, And I just went from one step to another step. I forgot what I was getting ready to say now.
He was asking about disciplines that you were using. You were talking about praying and constantly praying. Then you started talking about having fun in jail, even with Zeke Matthews. And that's where you started moving on.
I've forgotten what I was getting ready to say. You asked me another question.
What kind of fun did you have in jail?
Fun?
Yeah.
Jail was the best place to be. See, if I'm out of jail and some of my folk are in jail, I'm the workhorse. I'm the one that's got to worry. I'm the one that got to make sure that nobody get hurt in jail. I'm the one that got to make sure the news folk know what's going on a little protection. Reporting to the Justice Department, reporting to the FBI, although they're taking notes and helping out the white folk. All the things, knocking on doors, make sure that people come to the mass meeting so that we can tell them what's going on with the kids in jail. Preparing for the next march, the next move, or whatever we're going to do. All that responsibility falls on the guy outside.
Outside, okay.
I want to go to jail. I want to go to jail. But they get a chance to go to jail all the time. Every now and then. They wouldn't let me in jail. No, keep Sherrod out.
Charles, do you remember anything about what you were actually feeling or thinking when somebody like Zeke Matthews or his deputies were actually physically working you over? What was going on inside of you in response to that kind of violence?
I'll give you one example. When Zeke T beat me up, I didn't understand why he was beating me. That's why I jumped back up and said, I'm a child of God, and we are human beings, and we're Christians. I was messing with his mind, hopefully, trying to mess with his mind if he had. Because most of the white people go to church regularly. Even though they beat you up and everything, they still go to church. And so I was speaking to them, hopefully, that something would happen with them. But you know why he beat me up? He was beating me up because I was saying yes, instead of saying yes, sir, no, sir, or yes, sir, no, sir. No. That's why he was whipping me. But it took me a little time to understand which whippings I could take and which whippings I didn't need to have. Took a little time, but I learned. But I enjoyed the singing in jail. See, I read the Bible all the time. And Paul, this guy Paul, looked like he stayed in jail too. Seemed like he must enjoy himself in jail. And Paul said, whatever situation I find myself, I can abound. I said, how can I abound?
You abound in Zeke Matthews' jail.
jail. And I found a way to abound and to live Now, I know the point I was getting ready to tell y'all.
Okay.
See, when I first came to Georgia, having my experience with the police in Virginia, unafraid of the police in Virginia. Well, these police in Georgia and Mississippi and Alabama did so many bad things to me, it messed up my confidence in police. You see, I said, these police are not my friends. These police want to do me in. And I believe that if they had gotten a chance, if I was somewhere where they could kill me, they would kill me.
Yes. Yes.
Folk that want to kill you, it gives you a little twinge of fear. Well, at a certain point in my life, I asked the Lord to help me with this problem of knees knocking. The knees just wouldn't stay still.
Yes.
When these police draw these guns on me, and guys with these long flashlights at night, hitting them up against their hand. And next thing I knew, they're up against one of our heads. And it's just every day. See, if it would happen once a week or once a month, I could deal with that because I get time. Well, now let me get myself together. We're getting ready to have another demonstration next month. I got a month to get myself together, and I'll be ready to go. You know, my knees won't knock. So, but this happens every day, every morning, every night. There's some confrontation with some police that following me. I'm walking this way, there's police behind me. I got so good at that, I could tell you when there's police around the corner.
Yes. Yes.
I tell you now, that's true.
Yes.
I could tell you when a police came within 500 yards of my presence. I could feel it. Now, that's the point up again, but
You know, you're talking about how you were able to start dealing with, with
yeah,
that.
I was this fear. That's what I was. That's the point I was trying to make. But I asked the Lord to take away this fear. And I'm standing before these human beings with metal objects. Why is it that I have to just melt down before them? I never melt down before them, but I'm standing up to them, looking them dead in the eyes, acting like I ain't afraid, but I'm afraid.
Yes.
And I can't hold myself together. They don't see it because I don't think they saw it anyway, because they act like they were scared of me half the time.
Yes.
When I acknowledged that, I asked the Lord, just take it away from me. I accepted that I was going to die. And when I accepted that I was going to die, it was all over. It was all over. That was the last time I was afraid. The last time I was afraid of death. And then I could really mess with them. Boy, I could mess with them then. I just smile in their face. I talk to them. I wouldn't taunt them now. I wouldn't do something like the other guys. I tell the boy, I say, hey, little brother, let me talk. One night, I remember just clear, one night I told the boy, Isaac Simpkins, and Ed Fever. No, Ed Anderson. I was sick that night. I was driving the car because I was the only one with a driver's license. All the other guys drive in Albany, but I wouldn't let them drive out in the county. So we was coming for Baker County, one of the worst county I ever worked in.
Bad Baker.
So they stopped us. There's a carload of white folk going this way, a carload of white folk going this way, another carload. 3 carloads of white folk stopped us. And they sheriffs, the ordinary white folk as well, with guns, shotguns, pistols, and them long flashlights. I have respect for them long flashlights, y'all. See, I keep saying them long flashlights. They made an impression on me. Well, they wouldn't listen to what I told them before we got out the car. They stopped us, and, you know, nigga, get out the car. You know, I'm getting out slow because I'm sick. One of my bad days, but it was not that bad, though. I got out the car slowly. He got his gun out like I'm violent, like I'm going to get about 15. I almost said the C word. About 15 of them or more crowded all around the car with all kinds of instruments of war. And I'm going to do something. So I walked to the back of the car. Get ready to say something, and Isaac opens his mouth, and his mouth is quickly shut. What? But I'd asked him not to let me talk. Because by that time, see, I'd learned them guys a little bit. You know. I said, yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. And wouldn't speak unless I'm spoken to. Wouldn't talk smart to him. Have a smile on my face. Talk about the Lord. When the time to talk about the Lord, if I see somebody that I thought would help to talk to the Lord, I talk to the Lord in front of that person. But at that time, by that time, I had no fear of death. And that was a big hammer.
Where was this?
This incident that occurred, that was on the road from Baker County on the way back to Albany.
Mm-hmm. Which year?
With sheriff?
No, which year?
What year? I don't know what year. I'd have to. I don't know what year. Mm-hmm. If I didn't write a report on it, you know, most of my reports, I wrote reports. I sent reports to the SNCC office, always, and I made everybody else send reports. So anybody who want to know about Southwest Georgia Project can easily find out by reading those reports that we sent. Yeah.
Sean has a question.
I wanted to wait for you to finish your point.
Yeah, could we hold them until after the break, John? Okay, because we're going to need to stop for a break fairly soon, but see if there's any last thing before the break that Brother Charles Sherrod wanted to say to us, and we'll come back with your question, John. Charles, anything else that you want to add to this account at this point?
Nothing. I tend to forget. When I'm talking, if you interrupt me, it's gone.
That situation where Isaac got hit by the policeman because he opened his mouth at that point, you were talking about how important it was in that situation for you to be able to face it without the fear of death. What finally happened in that situation with all those white folks surrounding you all with weapons? Where did that go?
They tried to embarrass us. They said they were looking for a gun, and they made us take off our clothes in front of everybody, and open up our trunk and everything while we were there without our clothes on. And that's about all that happened. They jeered us and at us and so forth. But other than Isaac getting hit one time, that was it for that night. Some things you don't like to talk about. Some of those incidents.
But those are the things that people need to know about when they have this image of, quote, the civil rights movement as simply people marching around with signs and picketing someplace.
Yeah.
But to know what happened in those nights, in those counties,
Yeah.
on those roads, in those jails, that you can't know the price that was paid for this country
Yeah.
unless you know those things.
You can understand why some guys lost their mind
Yes.
and
Yes.
just gave it up, and went to drugs or smashed their hands through windows, and it's just inability to deal with so much
Yes.
nervousness, so much emotion, day after day after day. Like I said, if it was once a month, you deal with it. But this, no let up. There's always pressure, 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 pressure. And I learned to live with pressure. I learned to live with that. And to some extent, overcome certain kinds of fear. I still had fear now. If they had ever learned, if white folk in South Georgia, anywhere else that I worked, had ever learned that all they had to do was bring a rattlesnake and put it this far away from my face and said, nigga, you here tomorrow, we're going to put this rattlesnake down your throat. Boy, they wouldn't have seen me again. Or if they said they'd put me in a pipe, I'd be gone. But they didn't know that. They didn't know that.
And we still won't
They
tell
tried
them,
to point. They tried to point guns in my face and rifles and hit me with flashlights and cow prods and dogs and all of that. That stuff didn't work. A rattlesnake? Too late now, though.
Oh, thank you, Charles. Thank you. Friends, let's take 15 minutes. Come back at 10 minutes to 5, please. And then the questions are in your hands. Thank you, Charles.
People on the welfare, it's hard to organize. See, the more folk get, you see? Not impossible, but difficult.
I will say it again when other people come in, but our sound people would like to ask us to wait when we have questions after we've been recognized for questions to make sure that the small radio mic gets to us so that it can be easier for our questions to get on to the tape. I'd like us to take the rest of our time primarily with the questions or concerns or comments that have come to us as Charles has been sharing from his memories and experiences with us. But I'd like to ask you to reflect on one other thing, Charles, before we go on to the other folks. As I remember, one of the important things about so many of the SNCC operations, and certainly about yours in Southwest Georgia, was that you all had tried to shape yourself into a kind of action community. You were a group of people and not simply isolated individuals. As you remember that group, especially in that 61, 62, 63 period, were there other people who shared some of your own deep spiritual and religious concerns with whom you could talk, share, pray, cry, to help build your own life and to help build theirs and to help build the life of that struggle?
For the most part, people who participated with us in the movement in general were people who believed in God, had a deep sense of morality, and thought that they had a responsibility in life, in politics, need to educate their children, and all the kind of things that we agree that Christians ought to hold out as high marks. We had a small group of about 25 people just in Albany with whom we met regularly. We never opened a meeting without prayer. We never closed a meeting without prayer. And why did we do it? It's because that's how all of us were raised. You know, we never knew any other organization than church organizations. And that's the way the church organizations open up, and probably that's why we did it.
Yes, okay. Thanks for
I'm not trying to put anything in it that wasn't in it.
Yes, yes. But you don't want to miss what was in it
I
either.
don't want to miss anything either. I know that how I felt personally, how my emotions were drawn, and what my beliefs are. My actions were based on my beliefs and my emotions. And Christ was my way, and my belief in God, and what brought me over the hump when I got to that point where I was no longer afraid of death, which gave me the edge that I could lead better and help the white folk to see what they're doing wrong better, and to stand up to them better, thereby helping them as well. I had come up with the idea that we couldn't do nothing without group. I knew that we had to have pace. Now, there's a personal pace that you have to have, and having to deal with somebody trying to take your life every day. But then there's also strategy involved in it. That is, if I'm the leader, then I just go out there and say, white folk just cut my head off. If you want to stop the movement, stop me. I learned that early. That what we wanted, when the strategy I used to get the sure enough scary people to stand up. And I say sure enough scary people. I'm talking about folk that were more scared than me. More scared than me, you sure enough scared. But what I did was in organizing to have a revolving chairmanship. Therefore, all of us are leaders. And all you're doing is just chairing the meeting. You're not the president of the organization. You're not the leader. We know who the leader is. Whoever want to stand up here and take the punishment, whoever want to do this, whoever want to do that, they're the leader at that time, at that point. But that was our apparatus for safety, so that they could not pick one of us out and say, that's the head. Cut the head off, the body would die.
Okay.
May I, Vincent, just...
Please, Sudarshan.
I mean, that's a very insightful and a radical perception of leadership. How and where and when did you become aware of that way, that style of leadership?
You always asking me about times and dates. Boy, you'll never get an answer.
We might.
Simply because I can't remember.
Well, we'll keep on trying.
But I really...
Was the Raleigh conference a factor in this?
Nah.
Was Ella Baker a factor in this?
Well, Ella Baker always said people were the key. You know, get around your people, and people power, the power of people and all of that. Now, when you get down there where Ella Baker ain't, and it's just me and Baker County, I got to come up with something that would take these jitteries out of me and